for them. Giving out all their data out instantly doesn't bother them because they think privacy is some kind of strange, obsolete ideal. It just put me in mind of the Frankfurt group, one of the Marxist groups. They're still running basically the music industry today and entertainment industry, movies and etc. And lots of people in the entertainment industry are still devotees of this particular group who vowed again to destroy society as it existed by literally manipulating all of the culture and once again institutionalizing into the culture. That means by mandate through education, etc. All the terminology and the particular programs they'd want to be pushed forward, which they've been awfully successful at. You can't watch entertainment today without, if you can't study it as a director would study a movie and say, now what is he trying to actually really show here with every scene, then you're gone. You're being programmed. You identify with the characters, and the characters do something like this or that, and then you'll say, well, the character wasn't that bad, I'm kind of surprised, but I want to see how it ends. No, you're being programmed, because now you will start to modify your behavior by watching these, and that's how it goes. That's literally how it goes. Very easy to do. But that Frankfurt group, I've told you before, if you want to read people who really understood how it is, and were given full permission by the President of the United States, by the way, because they merged with the Macy group after World War II, give permission to change and dominate American culture, along with Bernays, and work with him too. You have to go into Theo Adorno. And Theo Adorno said, we shall know when we're at the end of the total destruction of he hated the existing society of marriage and bonding and stuff like that. He believed the state should be really totalitarian and rule every single individual. But he said, we shall know when we're there, when we have necrophilia becomes the norm. Necrophilia. And then they give you characters like Lady Gaga, a kind of third-class pole dancer, and who does what she's told, well-managed, of course. Lots of PR, and I'm sure she's told everything to say, if she can talk at all, that is, in the magazines. And she's appearing with these corpses that are going around now for art displays, plasticized corpses from China. As we get dehumanized and dehumanized, it's not by chance. Nothing that happens in the culture industry is by chance. Nothing. Zilch. It was the same even long before that, when they brought in the writer, the artist, to give you the various Picasso type schizophrenic paintings worth stacks of cash for a few scrolls. Again, it was they literally said to destroy everything that the humanity thought was beautiful. Destroy it. And so they brought experts, and we all are trained to believe experts. And some guys up there telling you, oh, there's a nose down at the chin, the whole bit, and it's going for millions of bucks. And how wonderful this is, and how it portrays this and that and all this rubbish. And people just follow it. It's like the king has no clothes. No one wants to yell. This is a piece of trash. That's how it's done. We're so easily managed by the culture professionals. And then when they institutionalize it in school and actually give degrees for folk to teach this tripe, to make it more legitimate by giving a degree to it, what utter tripe is that? Huh? Art professors? Really? You are your own champion. You are the guardian of your own mind. You have a right to decide what's right and wrong for yourself. And if something is wrong, don't be cowed. Say so. So, if you think your brain hasn't been targeted, think again. Bertrand Russell, remember, who worked for the top groups, the Macy Group, for instance, was authorized by the president, to drastically, radically alter the culture of the U.S., to bring in this whole, what you now think of as a liberalization agenda, to also destroy the family unit. That was part of it. And they've been awfully successful on that, haven't they? But Russell also said, by means of diet, there's your GM food and your pesticides and all the rest of it. Injections, there's all your free shots. Oh, you're going to die if you don't get this shot. Injections and injunctions, that's all your laws passed from above. The government will create the kind of being they want. People like Russell didn't talk off the top of their head in Fantasyland. They did not use crystal balls or consult mediums. They were in on top planning committees like the Frankfurt Institute that gave you your culture. They gave your parents their culture before you came along. And they can target parts of the brain where they're going after a gene. I doubt it, but there's certainly a whole bunch of genes they can actually identify that comprise that area and knock them out or switch them off. And don't think for an instant they haven't done that already across the world, especially starting with all of you. Don't think for a minute they haven't tried it and done it. Because of course they have. Hi folks, we're back, cutting through the matrix. And if Matthew from Australia is still hanging on, I'll take him now. Is there, Matthew?
I just wanted to ask you, are there any books about the Frankfurt School and what they've done with the music industry?
Yeah, you'll find lots on the net, in fact, if you just go into Frankfurt School and you look into especially the works of Theo Adorno, because he was one of the biggest players in the music side of things and the cultural changes. And you find out why they came across from Europe, not just to run from Hitler, but it was also that they studied the American system and decided how they could take it over, manipulate it and use it and destroy society and bring in the system that they wanted to control. And mind you, they were complete elitists. They really didn't believe in equality of classes or anything. They used that all the time, but they really believed they were too cerebrally superior to all the rest to ever have an equal society. They believed that humanity had to be ruled by the superior intellectual types.
Yeah, okay.
And there were eugenicists as well, you know. One of the intros to one of the books I read by Theo Adorno, he spends a whole page telling you that the English language was just too inefficient and to really put across his deep ability to express thought, and therefore he wouldn't attempt to do it. Then he goes on to spend 2 or 3 pages more on the intro, telling you how stupid most folk are. And if you can follow him, then you might have a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Frankfurt School was awfully big. It blended. It was part of the Macy Group. Truman gave the Macy Group power to help create the new culture for America, for the global society. That's official. That was a fact. And Bertrand Russell, who was a member of all these groups, also was a member of the Macy Group. That's what I'm saying. They gave where you are today with your culture is exactly where they and the Frankfurt School combined have brought you. They designed it years ago, years and years and years ago. This very stage you're at now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They talked about it. And in fact, Julian Huxley, and also a member of it too, and United Nations, UNESCO, he said that eventually there'll be a period of chaos when we've destroyed all the cultures and before they bring in the humanist society, and there'll be chaos there when people are nihilistic and despondent and there's nothing to hold on to, and there'll be a lot of crime and murders and rapes, but that's just something that'll have to happen. He says on the way. Yeah. That's in his own book, by the way. Yeah. And Russell said it too. He says that there'll be a dictatorship eventually coming out. He said, and this is probably a scientific dictatorship. That's what he was pushing for. And he worked with many organizations across the world. Many of them, in fact, one of them in the U.S. was meant to recreate American culture after World War II, so it wouldn't be fascist. And that was the Macy Group. And that was authorized by the President of the U.S. to alter the U.S. culture. And he said, this new society, this new system of rulership will be scientific, a scientific dictatorship. It will be terribly cruel because it's basically blind bureaucracy. You know, these strange lobster-eyed characters that are called bureaucrats, and that's who they are. You don't know what they're thinking, because I think they feel nothing, to be honest with you. Either that, they see you as nothing. It's probably more honest about it. But this is the system that they're bringing in now under the guy. It's beautiful. Everyone else is seeing everything as a crisis. I'm not seeing it as a crisis at all. I'm seeing it manufactured scary tactics to bring all of their desired agenda into being. Because as I say, they go down through the ages, they talk about the ages of man, and now you're into the technocratic age. And this is how you bring it in. But anyway, we're living through massive changes. It's also cultural, social changes as well, because that's all part of it too. All the revolutions that you went through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the sexual revolutions and various other revolutions are bloodless, fairly bloodless. But it's all to do with changing society into this great society where basically you have to be hedonistic and narcissistic. And in that way, of course, you won't marry or be able to settle with a person. You won't have children. And the population just plummets. That's happened already. And most people, even in their 60s, are trying to look like something on music television. It's utterly ridiculous, but it has worked very, very well. That is just basic fact. So people don't mature anymore, and they basically dance and boogie to their graves. So you're living through planned changes across the whole world. They had meetings back in the 60s to say who would give the culture to the world, a world society. And they held the meetings in London, England, with the Royal Institute of International Affairs, with their American branches and different world departments, branches all across the whole planet. And they decided that they would leave it to Hollywood, so they would be given instructions on how to debase society. It's worked awfully well, I must admit, because I've seen a lot of these changes, lived through them and watched it all happen, and it's still ongoing today. Even the gender, it's not the gender wars, now it's gender identity wars too. All that was discussed a long time ago as well. The more you can fragment society from a normal group that's been there for thousands of years, the more you can fragment it, make them into schisms, and they all fight each other, then the more one authority over the top of them can dominate them all. Very simple. But the whole social indoctrination system has been used for many years now.
It starts in school. They're doing this to children. They've done it to us. Like I said, we have been contaminated.
That's right.
You know, and when you read this stuff, this book right here, if anyone doesn't read a book, they need to read this one. You know, I mean, they just put it right out here, and they tell people how they are doing and what's going to come, how it's going to be.
And he worked, remember, too, he worked with two main groups that were set up to change, alter American culture completely.
Was he a part of the Milner group?
No, he belonged to that too, but he also belonged to the Macy group. They came from Vienna, the Vienna school, of the deep thinkers, they call themselves, but totally Marxist. But they brought over to the States.
What was the name of the school again?
That one's Vienna school.
Vienna school?
And the second one he belonged to was the Frankfurt School, and so members of the Frankfurt School ran off from Hitler. He was going to do them in too, and they joined up with the Vienna School that also came over to the States, and they formed the Macy Group. And the president, I think it was Truman at the time, gave them permission to go ahead and organize a new system that would transform the whole culture of America forever, because they said that the United Nations had gotten together and decided that the next country who might become totally fascist would be America.
And
so
Truman,
they went to work.
Is highly regarded, 33rd degree Mason. I know because, been there, done that. And but he let him come in and to set that sort of thing up.
Yes, he was paid by the U.S. taxpayer, and that those groups were paid to transform the society and the culture of America forever. And what they decided was to use a Marxist technique, because the Marxists already were against marriage, etc., and bonding.
Was he a member of the Fabian Society?
Pardon?
Was he Fabian Society?
He spoke at it, but I don't think he was a member. He was way above even them. Hi folks, I'm Alan Watt. We're back cutting through the matrix, reading from the Scientific Outlook by Bertrand Russell, Lord Bertrand Russell, a man he's a member of many international organizations. He was given presidential authority in the U.S. as part of the Macy Group, along with the Vienna School that was brought over and the Frankfurt School, to radically change the post-World War II culture of America for more obedience to authority. And they actually they said that America had too much in common with their ex-enemy, the Nazi regime. And that's supposedly the reason that Truman gave them the right to do this. And they read every part of culture change that we've lived through from really the 40s to the present time. The ongoing trends, the fashions, the morality or immorality were all discussed and helped to be put into effect by Bernays and Russell and many others of the Macy Group. For those who don't understand, including abortion, that would become common and be treated like a normal cold or something, that's no kidding. This is how far back they planned it in the 1930s.
And the big powers, they helped shape society up to the present time and helped to plan the cultural changes that we're living through today and have been living through our whole lives, in fact. Many of whom are now dead, these characters. Wrote copiously about it, what they would do, what their intentions were. These weren't individuals like Bertrand Russell sitting, making a wish list for a fantasy thing. These guys Russell belonged to the Macy Group, the Frankfurt School, a whole bunch of organizations, the World Socialist Society. During World War II, he worked for MI5. And so on. It's fascinating to realize that it's actually the powers that be, the ones that you think, because you're brainwashed to think, who control your society in a hereditary fashion, even in the UK, like royalty and so on. You think that they would never allow that to happen. But why not? Do you think they don't want a controlled, obedient society? Really? Of course they do. In London, the city of London was really the base for this international movement. Getting back to Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell said back in the 1940s and 50s, in his big part, for he worked with the Macy Group, the Frankfurt School, all these different big groups that were meant to change culture and society. And Lord Bertrand Russell said that shortly, with the proper techniques, anyone can convince anyone else of anything. He's talking about the ability to do complete persuasion and be completely believed by anybody and everybody at the same time with scientific techniques.
How do you get people to stop breeding? Well, you got to remember, breeding is a part of it. You know? Everyone can have sex, but to actually breed children, a different story. That was the goal. Well, you create promiscuity. You say, well, that's the opposite. That's going to... No, promiscuity without bonding. They said it in the different schools of thought that were put together to create a new culture post-World War II. Actually, even during World War II, they amalgamated some of these organizations, including the Frankfurt School that came over from Germany before the war. And they were all for that too, because they were masters at psychological manipulation and propaganda. But they merged with the Macy Group and were given permission to, along with London, to create a new culture. And what did they do? Well, create promiscuity. And if you get the youngsters mating early, you see, for sex, they wouldn't mate and bond. Just give them lots of partners. They wouldn't bond once they hit their 20s and get married and have children. That was the idea behind it. So it's so amazing that this is how psychology works, isn't it? They do the opposite of what you think they do, rather than say, just don't have sex, you see. It was much easier to say, no, listen, children, have sex. Enjoy yourselves. And that's what they did. They gave you pop music, you see. Before that was the Teddy Boy stuff, the Elvis Presley stuff. And then they brought in, and so they sexified guys for the first time. Elvis Presley was called Elvis the Pelvis. I mean, that was his nickname. It was almost like a guy going through gyrations of strippers, the later strippers. And it was all taught to him as well. But you got to understand that during World War II, big plans were worked on. I'm sure they're much, much older than World War II, but they were worked on during World War II by different agencies that suddenly appeared out of nowhere. You had the Frankfurt School, of course, that ran off from Nazi Germany before they were caught, because they were pushing a form of communism where literally they believed that man was an animal and you can train him to be anything that you want him to be, ultimately for conformity. And when they came over to the US, they were funded by the taxpayer and set up again. They had branches in different countries like Britain. And they also took Freud's talks as well, who also believed that man was an irrational being and therefore couldn't be trusted by those who ruled. So they all worked along with the Macy Group, the Frankfurt School, etc., with all the top philosophers of their day and this early so-called science. I don't believe it's science at all, but it's called psychiatry. And they believed that everyone was just too irrational to be trusted, except for themselves at the top. And they came out with lots and lots of programming for the general population who were oblivious that it was even happening upon them. They saw the effects of it down the road. They saw psychiatry being touted through all the big media, especially to do with celebrities. That's how they always start things. Well, if the celebrities are all seeing psychiatrists, we should too. And then psychiatry started to work with the educational system as well. In America, of course, I think under Truman brought out the National Mental Health Act as well. The Mental Health Act was to create a population of obedient people. That's what it was for. It wasn't going out looking for mentally ill people. It was to make sure that the populations wouldn't go the same way as the Nazis. And the general public, again, are pretty well unaware of all of this going on them. You didn't see the first signs and symptoms until, as I say, Hollywood started big time promoting therapy and the celebrities and all the magazines and experts. Remember what Bertrand Russell said, who did work with them? He worked with the Macy Group, and he also worked with the Frankfurt School and a few other ones and Bernays, of course, that gave America the Consumer Society. They all worked to basically create this new society of obedient people who would all believe in the same things and behave the same way. Massive projects, massive funding, but then what is massive when it's